Avery, a lot of inquiring minds in this audience, they already want to know, it sounds like a bit of a celeb fest out there with NFT drops. NFTs seem very consumer facing. Curiously, why would enterprise be interested in all this art stuff at all?
Yeah, that's a good question, Jordan, and thanks everybody for being here early. I know there's a lot going on during Basel Week, so appreciate y'all showing up for this. And I'm Avery, I run VaynerNFT, and what VaynerNFT does is we're basically a consultancy for enterprise partners, so whether those are brands or talent or athletes or artists who have sort of intellectual property in the real world and want to bring it to the world of NFTs. So Jordan is asking, why do they want to do that? I think there's a couple of reasons sort of driving this, but the number one thing is really a connection to consumers. At the end of the day, enterprise brands, they don't need $1 million from an NFT drop, right? They make that every single second. So that's not the reason that's the primary motivator. I think what's the motivator is wanting to build a connection to their community in a new way, and also to be on the forefront of innovation and sort of not make the same mistakes they made with Web 2 when it comes to Web 3, right? People see this coming, they see the consumer behavior shifting in this direction, and they want to start, getting into this space so they can figure out their place there.
It's certainly. And speaking of places, Joanthan, I'll go to you on this. From the consumer standpoint, I'm going to bring us back to earth here a bit, out of the sort of NFT nerd space, which we're all in, but your typical pedestrian out there sees enterprise mostly from a commerce angle, and it should be simple to just buy something. Your take?
Yeah, definitely. So, Avery said something really crucial there in that they want to attract their community, their audience. I think sometimes in the NFT community, we think so much that, these brands want to acquire us as, crypto. And of course they do. Who doesn't want to acquire more customers? But really, it's their own audiences that they're building, overall. So when we think about how they get into the enterprise and how they think about that overall, it's what works in their existing experience as opposed to forcing net new behavior. Anybody who's in product management or works on, how you transact, the goal is to reduce the steps to conversion. And so, for enterprise to really get involved, they really need to think about that, is how do we eliminate the steps and make it easy, but more importantly is how does that work with our, is my mic weird?
It's cutting out a little bit, but I'll let you know if it gets bad, or just yell at him if it gets bad.
Yeah, so just long story short is that it's, how does this work inside of the existing experience so that way, just like they purchase a t-shirt, they can purchase an NFT.
Chime in. I want to go to Bartek and something right after you.
So, I think if we take a look at what's happening here, I can see your t-shirt, I can see things that we both realize are the same. We have a perception of the physical world. Now, what happened is that we've been working with all these brands to trace pajamas, trace coffee, trace wine. And what happened was that now we have a virtual world. We have another world. Maybe none of us live in that world, but kids will live in a different world, and these brands understood that they need to produce exactly the same things that they have in the physical world, but in the metaverse. So in the same way, we're working with brands that would do clothing. They now need to do digital clothing because it's important as my digital identity that I'm wearing a Gucci t-shirt when I go and play a game with a friend or I go to a roller coaster. That's our approach. We are building the same assets that they sell in the physical world to bridge them into the virtual world. So for us, the transition was easy because we were already working with them, enterprises, to trace them. Now they say, hey, help me bridge and produce the same assets, cars, digital cars, t-shirts, digital t-shirts, art, digital art in the virtual world. So that's
certainly, and Yanni, we'll talk about that the digital asset world in just a moment. You also mentioned audience and the bridge. And Bartek, I want to go to you on this, on the bridge, because you have a influencer agency. It's natural to start, brands are used to working with influencers. How does that conversation develop? We're all curious to bridge, as Yonathan described it, into the NFT space.
Can you hear me?
No, I can't.
try to use this one. Oh, that's better now. It's not. Okay. So yeah, exactly what we're doing is like many brands and influencers are coming to us, but from my perspective, to be honest, they don't have like really idea what they want to do. So they got a big fear of missing out, that they see there's NFT and it is cool and there's like community growing and there's like some successful case studies from other brands. So they really want to be in this space, but they don't know how to start and what to do. So here's where we come, right? So we're trying to explain them, educate them, like show them all possibilities. And yeah, one of the things we already heard is loyalized clients. So this is like really important for the brands. But from my perspective, like marketing perspective, there'll be like tons of utilities, use cases where you can use NFT. For example, I believe like all coupon codes in the future, because what we do right now with influencer, we give the coupon code so they can give it to their fans. And in the future, it will be like NFT instead of coupon codes. It's much better. So you hold this NFT and you get discount to this company. You hold NFT, you get access to drop faster. There's like so many utilities we're thinking of. We can implement. This is what I was telling. Like we, for example, doing governance NFTs, which allow people, community, to decide about the product, about the next color of the product, or about the taste of the product. And yeah, that's amazing. There's like endless opportunities. But from my perspective, if you ask me like why brands want to do NFT right now, it's just because of fear of missing out. They don't really understand it, but it's okay, because then we came and we say, okay, this technology is not only about doing PR and marketing. It's like a really utility technology. It's a future technology. So then we're explaining them how and what to do.
Awesome for that, Bartek. This is certainly developing, and the coupon example we'll definitely get to just next. We'll talk about that, Joanthan, and like the steps to get there, right? The 8 versus the 1 click. But Avery, on the topic of brands, because there are brands out there, they'll listen to this talk later, and we'll market it, and they'll sure as hell will hear it. But what are some things that when they approach an agency or a platform like those on this stage, that they should not do? Perhaps another way to, maybe even simpler way, or what's some conventional wisdoms already going into the NFT space that are simply not true, Avery?
Well, I'll try to frame this up in a little bit of a positive way. So I think the things that brands absolutely should do is have a long-term strategy when it comes to NFTs. I think a common thing that we hear is that every brand and partner we've worked with, after we launch something, they'll say, wow, this is a lot harder than I thought it would be, for a number of reasons, right? It's regulation, it's legal stuff, it's questions about tax, it's questions about age gate, it's questions about terms and conditions. So first is having a strategy of like what you're going to do and being very intentional around this. The NFTs aren't tweets. You can't delete them if you don't like it after the fact, right? It lives on the blockchain and people can see it forever. So I think having a strategy is critical. Second is having an authentic connection to the community is really, really important. Whether that's doing something, and for Fortune 100 multi-billion-dollar companies, like they're not set up to take crypto today. Even getting these huge companies like able to take crypto is a huge and important step, but it's critical for the success of credibility within the NFT community. It's hard to have an awesome NFT platform where you only pay with a credit card and is not really in line with how things are typically done in Web3. So I think that authentic connection is important. And then the third thing that brands really need to do is still be true to themselves, because I think there's nothing more cringy than a brand or a celebrity trying to just use Twitter, NFT Twitter language and jump in without that actually feeling like who they are. So those are the 3 things that I really think are important for brands to think about. And Jordan, I wanted to go back to one of your other questions that you asked around influencers in the NFT space.
Go ahead.
Because I think that one shift I'm seeing that's a good use case for brands is brands are used to working with influencers and ambassadors, right? Like celebrities sell shit. That's how it works in marketing. And when you're thinking about an NFT strategy, one super authentic thing that brands can do is actually partner with an NFT like platform, whether it's an artist or whether it's an existing NFT program that's kind of aligned to their mission, or there's some sort of funny connection between the brand and the NFT program. I think that's such an awesome idea, and we encourage brands a lot, instead of going out with entirely their own thing that is a little half-baked, is to first start out with collaborating with someone who has that authentic NFT community connection, the same way they would in normal world with celebrities or influencers.
It's good to hear, and referring to influencers, I'm going to get you, Yonathan, on this. And Joanthan, I'm seeing we got some time. I'm going to really unpack this, like the mechanics of getting in there, because that's often overlooked from the commerce side. But Avery had mentioned, again, with influencers. Bartek mentioned coupons. It almost, it's almost like a geological structure, like a stack of depth, Yonathan, that brands can get involved in. Just to put brands out there in the right mental headspace. Where should they be thinking in terms of the depth of the stack and how deep they should go in terms of roadmap, for example, and understanding and deploying and integrating NFTs into their brand? Yonathan.
Yeah, so we had a brand, I can say the name, but we've been working with them, and a fashion brand, a well-known fashion brand. They came to us and say, hey, we started a conversation back in June, I think it was. And a month later, they say, hey, we did it. We are now, we did NFTs. And I say, okay, what did you guys do? Yeah, we launched these cool NFTs on OpenSea. And they tell us, well, what now? What are we doing now? And then we came back and say, okay, so you really need help. And our approach as advisors, we build infrastructure. The first thing we do is we understand that if you're a brand, you spend a lot of money in the last 50 years to build your brand, it's difficult to launch assets on OpenSea, on Rarible. You need to build it on your own site under your own brand. So the first thing we did is create infrastructure so you can actually launch NFTs on your site, right? So you don't need to go anywhere. So that's the first step. And the second step is understanding that they need to start small. They need to start small, and we always go an extra mile. We call it basically doing things that don't scale, because we're doing things that we shouldn't be doing, like helping with marketing and helping with other stuff that it's out of our scope, but it's important to spoon feed them as they understand the steps that they need to take. In the case of influencers, they really need to understand how to approach, how to get into the ecosystem of you can go to a gala wearing PJs, right? So if you're going to a gala, you need to wear a tuxedo, and that's, I think, the concept of bridging this crypto world, NFT world, into the brand. It's weird, but if they're getting in, they need to partner with someone that is already speaking the same language. So to summarize, starting very small with something very specific, having a long-term view, but not getting too deep into every single step, because they're not going to be able to accomplish anything. So key is partnering with someone that is already in the community and can bring them on and help them.
Not getting too deep, I do think there's some panelists here who might totally disagree with you on that. And on this note, Bartek, I want to go to you on this because some brands did email in. They were so curious about the panel, about this particular panel, and just to lay some foundation, a lot of them see various platforms and even NFTs as a platform, but almost like a reservoir for their audience, as you established earlier. A lot of that's on Instagram, which is where that reservoir of followers are. How should they be thinking about NFTs into relationship to what they do with that reservoir as an NFT? Bartek. Okay,
so yes, so we can start with what NFT probably will be in the future, because that's exactly how brands should start doing things. I said coupon codes because they already know it, and it is a better way to do lottery or to do coupon codes. But as we speak, the future will be metaverse. So I saw the studies which were saying that 60% of millennials and Generation Z, they believe that their internet profile, their Instagram profile, is more important than their real life persona. So it is more important for them. It is more important to be cool on social media than be cool in real life. And it's like a really big pivot, which we think. So that's why I believe the future will be totally into metaverse and people owning digital goods which are doesn't exist in real life, but got a lot of value, like the apes and stuff like this. So yeah, any apes here? Oh, hello.
A few apes, but
Ape follow ape.
they're putting their hands down quickly, but I think it's because they're being courteous. But I'll let you finish your answer.
Yeah. So you know, it's like it's really hard to speak about it like shortly, because it's like the spectrum is so big. Yeah, the spectrum is like as we can start with some coupon codes, then you go to the metaverse. So mostly with the influencers, it also depends on each influencer. But I think NFT is totally not competitive to their like channels, Instagram and other things, because NFT is a certificate of ownership, right? So it is like they allow their true fans, so those top community fans, to be more engaged. And this is something important for fans, because you know, fans on Instagram, they're like passive, right? They're just watching content and they can comment something, but there's not that many interaction. Like most of the celebrities right now got manager who's answering the comments. And with NFT, you can really be like a part of this journey. You can even treat it like investing in this influencer, grow with him, and you know, with governance NFT, you can even decide what he will do in the future. So this is something totally different. This new way of engagement.
Certainly.
Can I say 30 seconds on Gen Z?
Just hold one moment. I'm going to repeat this back to you, Bartek. It sounds like you agree in part with Yonathan, and that is, you know, tiptoe in, but it really is dependent on the brand, on how deep they go, and that's your main takeaway.
Exactly it is. Like you know, there are still brands who don't have website and social media. You know, they're like still kind of brands like this. So it depends how open they are and what industry they are. So we see Nike, we see Adidas going into metaverse and NFT, but there are some brands which won't do it in next 5-10 years because they're scared.
Certainly, and Yonathan, Jonathan, you wanted to respond to that.
Just 30 seconds on Gen Z. So, you know, Gen Z is the first generation that the majority of the things that they love, they've never physically touched, right? 2, brands are desperate to figure out how to speak to Gen Z. They're even going as far as acquiring earlier or younger brands so that they can get to Gen Z, right? So there's a really interesting intersection opportunity there for the enterprise as well as startups in the space.
Yeah, certainly, and we'll definitely dive in the Gen Z topic as it relates to Discord, because I got a lot of emailed questions in from enterprise brands on like, it's Discord and like how do we use it? But on the mechanics, you knew this was coming. We'll talk about this, Jonathan, and I'm going to go to Avery on this. The experience, the user experience to buy digital goods, which both Yonathan and Bartek referenced, seems quite painful. Uninitiated audiences on cryptocurrencies, a lot of, you know, just like the pedestrian crowd out there, even just the concept of buying an NFT is still wildly foreign. Your take, Jonathan?
Yeah, look, you know, I have a point of view on this that sometimes crypto people don't like, and I don't think that you can force Web3 down brands' throats or consumers' throats. So any product that gets sold, any product that gets created, it's all about what's best for the consumer, what's best for the overall experience. Amazon literally had a patent on one-click payments, right? It expired, I think, recently. But the whole purpose of a brand when going to the commerce site is to transact and to convert. Introducing net new behavior of acquiring cryptocurrency and creating a wallet and having it go in some sort of other marketplace, that's new behavior that you're asking your customer to go through, which creates churn opportunity. Brands do not want that, right? The only reason brands go onto marketplaces is to hopefully acquire new customers, but if given the preference, they want to transact on their existing e-com platform. So we're very firm believers, and you know what we're doing at Niftmint is we're building interoperability into the existing e-com platform so that the consumer can purchase the NFT the same exact way they would purchase the t-shirt. And then we also believe that there needs to be a layer of being a custodian for these brands and their consumers. Now, if someone wants to go ahead and store crypto or keep the NFT on their shelf, no problem, provide your wallet. But we're talking about 500 million people in the world that have some sort of cryptocurrency. To ask a brand to find the triangulation between their consumer and those 500 million, I think is a very tall order, and the brands have the opposite, or sorry, my point of view is I see brands as essentially the rocket ship to bring the average consumer into NFTs in this easy way that's natural to their existing processes.
Can I just add one thing? Because it's amazing because we're doing the same. So last drop we did with influencer, there were two possibilities. You were able to pay with Web 3.0 and you were able to pay with credit card. And over 90% choose to pay with credit card. They don't have wallet because you got influencer and the fans who never been into crypto space.
And so hold that thought, and we're unpacking the payment issue, and Avery, you had a storied career at VaynerMedia before Gary Vaynerchuk plucked you to run, especially working with commerce brands, before he plucked you to run VaynerNFT, and I really want to lay even more foundation for the problem that Joanthan is talking about, and that is, we've had folks write to Grit Daily about their user experience because we query this kind of stuff, and talk about MetaMask for a second. Step one, they are on Mozilla they're on Firefox, they're on Chrome, and there's a big frickin' red warning up on top, Avery, and it says something like, "Do not trust this thing," and that's just step one, especially with just that mask. Forget, you whisper the word phantom, right? No pun intended, and people have no idea what you're talking about on the pedestrian level. But even when you're in MetaMask, a 10 passphrase, so on. They have to repeat in order. If you're a 66-year-old, woman living in Honolulu, Hawaii, and you've got your iPad that your son bought you or daughter bought you,
it's your grandma, Jordan.
This is not her. I'm describing a specific individual. So, Avery, Joanthan's identified quite a problem.
Yeah.
Your take on that opportunity and some of the right ways to solve it, Avery.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe I'll give a couple of specific examples because I feel like that's much easier for people to understand. Everything that these guys are saying is totally true, right? Like the user experience for a non-crypto native is not amazing because it's confusing. There's scams, like even CEOs of companies and like, "Oh, I got this Bored Ape for only an ETH," and then you're like, "Oh shit, you just bought a fake," right? Like that, things like that happen all the time. "Oh, I just paid $700 in gas fees." Like, what's that? It's not a good experience for someone's first NFT purchase. So I think there's the first part of that is establishing the problem, and then establishing the solution can happen in a lot of different ways. What Joanthan's platform does is like one example. We have a couple of drops this week, and I'll explain sort of how those were done. We did one earlier this week with Budweiser, where you could pay with both ETH because we wanted to do something that was crypto native, and you could pay via credit card. You did need a wallet, so you needed a wallet address. And the reason that we structured it in that kind of a way was to make it easy for non-crypto natives to buy it. Of course, the punchline is it sold out in a minute, so no non-crypto natives got a chance to buy it, but they could have if they wanted. And one of the interesting things is that when we've done many of these drops that allow credit card payment, most people actually do choose to pay via credit card, even if they're crypto native. Maybe they don't want to use their ETH, maybe it's something else, but I think that's a good solve, is to have both options available. Playboy did this very successfully. Marketplaces like Bitsky have done this really well. Shopify does it. It makes it simple. So I think that there's one is building a bespoke experience where you take both forms of payment. The second option is to use a marketplace solution, which is simple, whether that's OpenSea or Rarible or something like that, which does, I think, make consumers feel like, normal consumers feel a little bit more secure because they're logging in. There's some element of custody within that marketplace, and it's not like a multi-step journey. So I think that's another option. We have a drop today happening on Rarible, and I think that's another example of a way to simplify it. But where the future is heading is probably a place that is simpler for consumers, is maybe more of a one-stop shop. I know it's a huge debate, and people have hot takes on either direction of whether marketplaces should custody or not. I think either way actually can be okay. It really depends on the core audience that you're looking to engage and what makes sense for your brand. There are sometimes very specific legal reasons that companies need to do things like that. It's sort of a bit against the grain of the Web3 ethos, but if it's bringing more people into the space, I think net, that's not the worst thing.
Can I add something? So I think it's just, we don't need to be impatient. I think, adding to what Avery said, it's just too early. These issues are fine. It's like thinking of downloading a CD-ROM 20 years ago. Now you can download it in 2 seconds. Back then, you need to wait like 10 hours, and then something happened. So we are just too early. This is normal. We can do our best to bring them on and onboarding. We actually launched yesterday Seva Lab, Deepak Chopra's Marketplace for Good with Emilia Clarke. We have payments with Circle integration, MoonPay integration, credit cards, ETH, that's the best we can do. And sometimes it fails, it's part of the maturity process. So we shouldn't be, it's on normal.
But Yonathan, what I'm hearing from you here, and even hearing from Avery, I'll get to right back to you in a second, is you just said it's too early. Well then just to repeat this back to you, you're just saying, brands, it's too early. Don't worry about NFTs right now. We got to figure out a lot of technical stuff before you can get involved. And I'll let you respond to that. Avery, you, to a lot of extent, I laid that foundation on MetaMask, and I was listening. We were all listening very carefully, and you had said that people still needed a mask, at least in one use case, and you identified a second problem was that non-crypto natives in the drop that you described, again, I was listening, didn't get access to it. So it sounds like another interesting problem that you identified.
It's a demand creation problem, which is, by the way, a good problem, right? It's a successful drop when it sells out immediately. So it's hard to complain about that. And this isn't a Vayner project, but seeing what's been happening with the Matrix drop, right? Like they're overwhelmed with demand, which in a lot of cases is a great situation. However, there are technical challenges. I think in our view, it's not too early, but it is early, and also setting the right expectations of what's technically possible. A lot of stuff breaks in Web3 today. The same way your first iPhone was nowhere near what your iPhone is today. We see the potential in the future, and I think it's a step-by-step from our perspective. It's what can we do that's the best thing today? And maybe the best technology today is the Ask Jeeves of tomorrow. I don't have a crystal ball, but we think that getting in there and building these learnings and starting to establish brands' presence in Web3 is a really smart and strategic move.
And I did thank you, Avery, and whoops, thanks for clarifying. And I keep this away from me. Thanks for clarifying, Yonathan. I did call you out by name, so I'll let you respond.
Yeah. So, I agree. It's early. I think it's good for the brands to start getting in because we are learning from that process. But it's also important to set expectations. Like we are now have like $50 transfers on ETH. So we are trying to fill the gas tank as we're flying in the middle of a flight. So expectations are important to set, and technology is being built. It's important to bring the brands on early on.
Thanks, Jonathan. And we have about a minute, and I'll give you the last word. It's needed, but we got some questions there. We got a walking mic. I do want to make sure that we can get. We got a runner in the middle, who's fast, like literally a runner, because we got just a minute here.
Why don't you just say it?
Yeah, just. Yep. Yeah. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Okay,
everybody.
I see you in the back,
this
if I
is
get to
primarily to Avery, but I'd certainly love to hear other people's opinions. I'm part of the VFriends family, literally streaming on a Discord channel to the Gift Goats, which is like a smaller group within the group kind of thing. So community's super important, super tight. What I'm curious about from you is, within the Gift Goat community, we're getting NFTs and physical products. And what do you think of that blend, and what is the synergy there really with VaynerMedia clients, VaynerNFT clients, and being able to, collaborate with Gift Goat drops?
Thank you,
Awesome.
Avery. You have about 15
Yes,
seconds.
I'll be very quick. Well, for one, thank you so much for being a Gift Goat holder. And for those who don't know, VFriends is Gary Vaynerchuk's project with 12,000 tokens sold to many unique holders. We launched this in May, and Gift Goat, in my opinion, is the crown jewel token because you actually get 18 gifts over 3 years from Gary, which are a mix of physical and digital. And one of the things and the amazing thing about VFriends is it's a place that can be entirely driven by Gary. Like, yes, he is a brand, but it's very different than working with, Fortune 100. So we get to have a little more fun sometimes. And what's cool about the Gift Goat program is that we didn't, and this is very intentional, there is no external roadmap for VFriends, right? Because opportunities come up and things change all the time, that like awesome stuff that the Gift Goat holders can be rewarded. And the intersection for these gifts is actually a little bit based on the behavior that the gift holders are more interested. It's more valuable to them to get a really awesome NFT than maybe like a wallet or a fancy bottle of scotch or something like that. So there's a mix of both these physical and these sort of NFT gifts. And the idea is that these gifts can then appreciate over time and fundamentally underpin the token with some physical utility. You're definitely onto something, that we have a bit of a network effect going between gift codes and the rest of VaynerX, which I think is ultimately a huge advantage to our clients and our partners, that it can be a little bit of like 1 + 1 + 1 = 11 sometimes when we bring the right folks together, including,
Thank
of course,
you.
the token holders.
Yeah. Thank you.
Following your math, quote, V-Friends can be a little more fun. Jonathan, I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, just one last thought for everybody here, 10 seconds. So the brands that didn't adopt Web 1.0, they didn't make it, right? The brands that didn't adopt Web 2.0 didn't make it. So what do you think will happen to the brands that don't adopt Web 3.0, right?
We'll leave on that note. It's all the time that we have. My name is Jordan French, Grit Daly, Yonathan Lapchik, Jonathan Blanco, Bartek, Sibiga, and Avery Akkineni. Big round of applause for them. I'm sure they'll be available in the back, that corner, for questions. I'm sure you have more. We could go on for like an hour here. Thanks, Ken. Until next time.